The college football transfer portal is already taking off. There's already some exciting names that are putting their name into the portal, and we're going to see more as the portal actually opens on Monday. But for now, we're going to take a look at the top 20 names that are currently in the transfer portal. And I promise you, it's really only going to get better from here. There's going to be more names, more big names that put their name into the portal. And we're already getting reports from North Carolina that there are going to be a lot of players entering the portal. And again, some of those are going to be big names. But for now, let's take a look at some of the intriguing prospects that are in there. I think in terms of the most excitement, the most potential, Jeff Sims, the Georgia Tech quarterback, has to be up there. We see a guy who has an incredible arm and great athleticism. We just haven't seen him put it all together. And whether that's his, inconsistencies as a player, as a passer, or the coaching staff that he was with, it's something that needs to be kept an eye on and something that he could develop. But if he does develop it, a lot of NFL draft analysts really like where he could go. Another player that is going to be interesting in terms of where he lands is Malik Hornsby, the Arkansas quarterback who was the backup to KJ Jefferson for most of this year and last year. Has great speed. He has the ability to break things open. That track speed really shows on film. It's just a matter of, again, kind of like Sims, can he be consistent as a passer? I'd really be interested to see what he could do in maybe Gus Malzahn's offense in UCF. But again, until I dive more into it, I don't really know where he'll land. Someone that is getting him is going to have to figure out a way to develop him as a passer, but they're getting an extremely fast quarterback and an extremely fast player. Maybe the more interesting player in this portal is Cade McNamara, a guy who has playoff experience, lost the job to JJ McCarthy, and then got hurt towards the end of the year. He is a player who's been very scrutinized by Michigan fans, and he's a solid quarterback. I think that he is going to join a team, and I think he's going to make an instant impact on someone that needs a quarterback. He has, again, that big time experience playing against quality competition. And that can't be said by a lot of the players that are in this portal so far, and maybe even someone that will join him in the future. So I think Cade McNamara is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Davis Brynn was having arguably his best year of his career before injuries and some inconsistencies and turnovers kind of ruined that, but still had a pretty decent year. 2,138 yards with 17 touchdowns. He does have to work on getting the turnovers down, but I think when he is playing confident, he's a very exciting player, and I'm interested to see where in the conference he ends up, or even if he goes outside of the conference to maybe a Power 5 school. To me, the biggest non-quarterback transfer portal candidate right now is Tyrese Chambers. The FIU wide receiver in 2021 had an absolute monster year of 1,074 yards and just 45 catches. That's 23.9 yards per catch and 9 touchdowns. Now, why is that a monster year? He's on FIU. If you can tell me who FIU's quarterback's been the last 2 years, one, you know a lot about college football, but two, you're not a common fan. The common fan doesn't understand how good those numbers are at FIU. Even this year, 51 catches for 544 yards and 4 touchdowns. Again, FIU is not a thriving program right now. So for him to put up that kind of production is insane, as somebody at the Power 5 level is going to get an elite pass catcher. Another guy competing for that number one non-quarterback spot is Old Dominion running back Blake Watson. Had 1,000 yards last year, and this year he, had a cumulative of 1,000 yards. 918 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground, 314 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air. He is a speedster that can add a dynamic playmaker to an offense. I'm really excited to see where he lands. Put 2 really good years together to put himself in this position. With all the attention on freshman Luther Burden, Dominic LeBlanc kind of fell under the radar, kind of went unnoticed, but he still had a really good year. Star wide receiver for Missouri, 846 yards, 3 touchdowns. Someone's going to get a really good receiver. I'm very interested to see where he ends up. Now, there's going to be some FCS players that get a ton of attention. One of those big names has already been Andrew Armstrong. He's got a number of offers from Group of 5 and Power 5 schools, from Texas A&M Commerce, and his year, 1,020 yards, 13 touchdowns. It's easy to see why he's getting the attention. His frame is also getting some attention as well. That is something that is going to be fun to watch. I think that he's getting a lot of attention already, and that's only going to continue. Number 9 to me, now this may be a little bit biased. I just like the potential of Hank Bachmeier. I think that he has a great skill set. I think that he is the toughest quarterback in college football. If you keep him upright and he's able to get time, then I think that he can be really good. Now, this year he did struggle with some inconsistent play, and that's what ultimately led to him getting benched. And then, he kind of, after that, you kind of move on from Boise State having some struggles. They go to a younger quarterback, Hank Bachman, to me, has the skill set to be really good. He made a number of big time throws in the last few years, and somebody's going to get a really good quarterback if they give him the time and the patience in order to throw the football at a high level. Keeping with the Mountain West, Titus Swin comes from Wyoming after a 1,000-yard season, a guy who really runs the ball, I think, really well. I think he's a very physical runner, someone who obviously, like, you look at what Wyoming has been doing, the kind of running backs that they produce. He is just the latest 1,000-yard rusher in really a long line under Craig Bull. Number 11, our first offensive lineman, Damian George from Alabama, 17 games of experience, 3 starts. When you go to Alabama, you kind of get that recognition. You almost get that little bump. And I think Damian George is going to get that and add to a team that really needs a starting offensive line and maybe needs some depth at that position. Number 12, someone who didn't have the best year in terms of 2022, but did have a good year in 2021, is Brett Gabbert, the Miami of Ohio quarterback, the brother of Blaine Gabbert. And you look at what he did in 2021, almost 60% completion percentage, 2,648 yards, 26 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. This is maybe one of the more intriguing group of 5 transfers in terms of maybe he goes just to a higher group of 5, but maybe he gets some Power 5 looks as well. That's a very intriguing. The name, the recognition, that is something that is in his favor, and it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. Dante Wright, to me, could be a star on some offense that fits his skill set well. This Colorado State wide receiver only played in 2 games, didn't produce a catch this year, and it's someone who probably should have moved on when the new coaching staff came in, and it's someone that I really think can be really good in the right offense. 2021, 44 catches, 544 yards, and 54 yards and 3 touchdowns. He is a good slot receiver, someone who can really open things up for your big time players down the field. Another offensive lineman from Colorado this time, Casey Roddick, a 3-year starter and team captain for the Buffaloes. Buffaloes didn't have much to celebrate this year in their struggling season, and now they are looking for a new coach, and they're going to have to find another offensive lineman, another leader to join their team or to step up and lead the way. Number 15, a name that people recognize, is Trey Sanders, the running back from Alabama. Struggled with injuries for a lot. He just kind of had really bad luck with those injuries. 2021 had a pretty okay year as a backup, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that the potential is there. It's just a matter of, can he be healthy? Can he stay healthy? And can he put it all on the field? Luke Altmeier is an interesting one from Ole Miss. We kind of all saw this coming when Jackson Dart won the starting job. We all expected him to transfer. He's had his opportunities to showcase that his skill set and show what he can do. Just really hasn't done that. I think the Sugar Bowl against Baylor was his biggest opportunity to show what he could do, and didn't exactly do super well. 53.6% completion percentage, 174 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. If he's in the right system, maybe this thing works, but I think that we need to see it before we believe it. USF linebacker Antonio Grier only played in 5 games this year, but in 2021, he had a really good year for a defense that struggled for the most part. 92 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. I think you're getting an athletic playmaker and knows what he's doing. He's a veteran. He has plenty of experience, and it'd be interesting to see where he ends up. I don't know what kind of offers he's going to get, but you're going to get a playmaker. Like I said, that's a veteran. You can bring that to your locker room. Georgia Tech wide receiver Nate McCollum had a pretty big year in terms of Georgia Tech standards, 655 yards, 3 touchdowns as a receiver. Again, another guy that you can really add to your roster that could add some depth, add some quality catches and possessions to your offense. And it's going to be interesting what kind of Georgia Tech players get offers and where they go. You talked about Jeff Sims earlier. Nate McCollum maybe doesn't have the appeal of Jeff Sims, but he's definitely going to give you something that you're really looking for. To me, Jalen Mitchell, it wasn't a surprise to see him enter the transfer portal after Tyon Evans really stole the starting spot, and that's not really surprising. It really wasn't much we saw from Jalen Mitchell. And you look at his 2021 numbers, 722 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. That's what you can get from him. Again, for like a lot of these guys we talked about, it's about the right fit. And to me, Jalen Mitchell gives you a solid running back. And if anything, he just gives you more depth. if he doesn't win the starting spot. And then the last one to me is Miles Slusher. I think that he is a versatile defensive back from Arkansas that can add more depth to a secondary. He can move around all over the field, kind of did that a little bit last year and this year. And I think that's something that can't be understated, is that versatility is going to open things up for someone looking for that kind of player. You may not have that in your freshmen or sophomores that you have on your roster. So if you're looking for a guy that has that experience, you can add Slusher to that secondary. And there's other guys that really, to me, aren't quite on this list, don't really deserve to be on this list, but there are names that you keep an eye on. Lynn J. Dixon from Tennessee, the former Clemson running back, Avery Helm from Florida, Kyrie Jackson from Alabama, Trent Whitmore, the wide receiver from Florida, Mark Pope, the former Miami transfer who transferred to Jackson State. Jordan McGill is going to be interesting from Stanford. I think that's another veteran to keep an eye on. Dante Thornton, who I believe was just in the news for punching an Oregon State fan. That's definitely not a good look, but he is someone that has a lot of talent. J.Q. Hardaway from Cincinnati, the freshman, the four-star freshman, has a lot of talent, a lot of potential. Not a surprise to see. I think we're going to see more Cincinnati players enter the transfer portal, as we saw Luke Fickell go to Wisconsin. And then finally, Taj Harris, the former Syracuse and Kentucky at one point. Rutgers currently is what his team was. I think that he is a solid possession receiver, someone that can give you, again, more depth and more experience. There's a lot of names in the transfer portal currently. There may be some that I left off, so I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about who should be higher, who should be lower, who is someone to keep an eye on to maybe even enter the transfer portal. There's, again, a lot of names in there, a lot of names that are going to enter the transfer portal once it opens up on Monday. And one of the more interesting aspects of college football is going to be really fun to watch.